Hello and welcome to this RMS Support Center release brown bag training. Today we will be reviewing the updates and fixes made in the upcoming patch release. That patch number is set to be 522, but that does have the potential to change. This patch is targeted to be released on February 13th, which will be this Thursday afternoon. If you experience any issues downloading the new patch, please don't hesitate to contact the help desk. There is a link to our ticketing system in Jira and a phone number you can call listed on the references slide in this presentation. The slides for this presentation can be found on our website, rms.usace.army.mil. That link can also be found on the references slide, along with a few other resources linked there as well. These slides will be updated to include any Q&A that occurs during today's presentation, and this presentation is also being recorded. So this video will be posted on our YouTube channel that should be posted within about 5 business days following our presentation today. So keep an eye out for that. That video will be made available both on our YouTube channel as well as listed on the RMS website. If you have any questions regarding anything we covered today, please type that question into the Q&A section of this WebEx. We do have some folks on standby ready to take care of those as they come in. We'll also open up the floor for discussion at the end of the presentation, so if you'd like to wait until the end and unmute to ask your question, you will have the opportunity to do that as well. So let's get started. Here are the areas we're going to cover today. First, we'll review some updates that relate to logins. Then we have a general update regarding PCF. And then at the district level, we'll look at an update within the local office menu before we get into the administration, finances, and QA/QC fixes and updates. So first up, starting with the logins updates. This one here is for the authentication code that must now be entered for the username and password logins. The message shown when an expired code is entered was updated to make that clarification. Instead of just saying that the code is a mismatch, the message is now going to let users know that the code is expired. This updated message will also let users know that another code needs to be generated and to retry by attempting a new login. Once clicking OK to get out of this window, you'll just need to hit the back button to return to the login screen and retry the login. Next is an update to the message that appears on the login screen when a logout occurs due to inactivity. So when an RMS session times out after 6 hours of inactivity, the message on the login screen previously only showed as logged out on this day and this time, but it did not specify that the logout occurred specifically due to inactivity. That's been updated, and it's now going to state that the session was logged out due to inactivity along with the date and time as usual. This inactivity message will only show for that type of logout when you log out manually as you usually would by clicking on the logout button. The message will still appear as the image states in the bottom corner of the slide. Okay, moving on, we have a pretty significant update that's going to impact a lot of areas generally throughout RMS. So since RMS has been made the system of record for documents, there's no longer a need to send documents to PCF from RMS. Therefore, all the references to PCF have been removed from RMS. As shown here on this slide, in the contract setup module, this send documents to PCF checkbox is no longer there. And to show that further for this presentation, we've got the contract file shown here on this slide. And we can see that the send all documents to PCF button is no longer there at the top. The PCF verbiage has been removed from any titles or field names, etc. And the PCF status column is no longer part of the data grid. The document statuses will also no longer include any mention of PCF. Here we're showing the QC Daily Reports module as an example. The QC PCF status column is no longer there, and the statuses shown in the tiles and in the data grid have been amended. And that's going to be the case throughout RMS, not just in these areas that I've reviewed. Okay, moving on, there was an update in the office description module from within the local office menu. The division office option has been added to the office type field selection. So now, if needed, an office can specify that in the office type field if the user making the update has the necessary permission to do so, of course. This type of office will be included in district calculations for reporting. Next up, we'll look at the administration area. So we've got some updates to cover for the contract status module. This one is pretty in-depth as well. This is an update to the phase tab. What I'm going to review is in-depth. Previously, when changes and modifications were created in RMS, the data for those changes weren't always showing correctly in these tables at the bottom of the phase tab in the contract status module. As shown on this slide, this approved change request is showing the correct values in the correct area, and that is in the middle approved contract, including approved changes table, part of that cost and time growth section. I want to kind of break down what should be showing in these tables now that updates have been made to ensure that these values match what is actually entered into RMS. So I have the middle table highlighted, and I've got the highlighter tool to assist with this. So let's go ahead and look into that one. This is the approved contract, including approved changes, or the code 5 table. And this is going to show the current contract data with the data from any change requests that have been entered and approved in RMS. The approved change request data will show in this table until the mod or mods that those changes are linked to have been marked as completed, at which point that data will be reflected elsewhere, which I will discuss shortly. So this change request we're showing on the slide has been approved as indicated by the change request status field, and this is from the status/funding tab of a change request. And that's also where the code 5 comes from in the title of the table. So we can see it says 5-approved, and that's for the code 5 table. This change adds 12 days and $1,500 to the contract, and we can see in this middle table that those values show up correctly in the options/definitizations row. So moving on to the next one, the proposed contract including proposed changes table. This table should show the approved contract data along with data from proposed change requests in RMS. So similar to the approved table, but also still different, the changes included in this code 4 table will be those in the proposed status in RMS, also indicated as status code 4. This is also determined by the status selected in that same change request status field in the status/funding tab. So if this change shown here on the slide had a status of 4-proposed instead, then that information would be showing in the code 4 table instead of this middle table. Now on the far left, we've got the current contract including completed mods table, or the code 6 table. And this table is for the current contract data. So it's going to show the base award information, which comes from the award CLINs and the milestone schedule, in addition to any changes made to the contract as a result of completed modifications. Only the fully completed modification data will be reflected in this table. So now if we want to look at how the calculations are performed for these tables, we can do that by reading from top to bottom and left to right to go from the completed contract information to the pending or proposed contract information. For each of these tables, this is how the calculations will work. The top row will be added to the second options/definitizations row values to get the original amount on the third row. And then the controllable and uncontrollable mod values will be added to that original amount to get the total for the current contract. The The modification reason codes used for these changes will dictate where the data for each of those changes falls in these rows. Changes with modification reason codes 5 and I will show in the options/definitizations rows. And then data for the changes with controllable or uncontrollable modification reason codes will show in the corresponding rows. The data for the modification reason codes are selected as part of creating the change requests in RMS, and the controllable or uncontrollable identifiers for each code can be viewed there. So the controllable and uncontrollable values will be added to that original total to get to the current contract total, as I mentioned. So in the first current contract, including completed mods table, we have the base award amount as the starting point for that table's calculations, which sum up to the current contract total. The current contract total will be the starting point for the approved changes table, which with all of this information will sum up to the approved contract amount. And then the approved contract amount will be the starting point for the proposed changes table, which will total up with this information to the proposed contract amount. I know that was a lot of information all at once, but like I mentioned previously, we are recording this training. So if you need to refer back to this, you will be able to once we get this video on YouTube. And we also have other resources out there that define all of this as well. So if you have any questions regarding this information, please let us know and we'll be able to point you in the right direction. Okay, moving on. Also in contract status, we have an update to the monthly progress tab. This is the second part of some updates that have been made to improve how monthly progress works. First, RMS will do a better job of calculating actual progress by better determining when that percent updates. And then additionally, RMS will show you exactly where the information comes from and where it's being reported. So as we can see here on the bottom, it's showing us exactly which month is being reported and where it's being reported on the status report. And then in the middle, we have the snippet from that contract status report reflecting that information accurately. This was done in hopes that it will make the process of reporting progress just a little better for users. Next up, we have some updates and fixes in the finances area. First, we'll start in progress payments. We had a minor update to the payment status summary at the bottom of the screen. Before any payments have been created, the 30th day after settlement date message has been removed. This will no longer show on the screen before a payment has been entered for the contract. This message will now show when you select the final payment, but at no other time. Next, this relates to progress payments in contractor mode. When a user created an invoice in contractor mode, the activities seem to be missing from the requested activity earnings tab, even though the activities did in fact exist. This only happened the first time the payment was opened, and the user would have to just exit and re-enter the payment to make that list of activities show up. This has been updated to avoid that. A refresh process has been added to make sure that the activities will show up in contractor mode invoices when they are created without having to back out and re-enter to make those appear. Next, still in progress payments. This is in relation to foreign currency on contracts. specifically CONUS contracts. So contracts that were set up with foreign currency while in a CONUS district were having issues with RMS differentiating the exchange rate lines from CFUMs. So we've updated that. The exchange rate obligations from CFUMs will no longer show in a foreign currency contract within a CONUS district. Just as a reminder, if you have a foreign currency contract in a CONUS district, make sure that the foreign currency is set properly under contract setup before performing that first CFUMS download for the contract. This will help ensure that everything downloads properly from CFUMS. Next up, this has to do with the concurrent editing on progress payments. So while viewing progress payments, if a user enters a payment while it's being edited by another user, as indicated by this pop-up shown here, the NG93 completed checkbox seemed to still be active, even though this should show as read-only since someone else is making the edits to the payment. And this has been resolved. The ENG93 checkbox will remain grayed out or deactivated when you're viewing a payment that someone else is currently editing, as it should be read-only. Okay, moving on to pay activities within finances. There was an update made here in the contractors tab of this module. In this tab, all the subcontractors associated to the contract are listed. And when you double click on one of them, you can see all the activities linked to that subcontractor. In this view, the CLIN column was added to now be able to see which CLIN those activities are linked to as well. So moving on to contract modifications, we recently made an update to how the text for the SF30 can be viewed in RMS and provided an ability to download that text that goes on the SF30 to a PDF file. That capability has now been expanded to now allow that text to be exported to Excel, Word, and text files in addition to PDF. So once exported and saved, the files will open in the corresponding application as chosen in that export screen. Here we have examples of the Excel and Word files. And then here we have the examples of the PDF and text files. Okay, still in contract modifications, this one was for the mod routing slip. The mod routing slip report was showing the wrong time information in the time extension field on that report. This report was using the values from the BCD item's original time estimates as shown as highlighted here. But the amount of time that the change actually resulted in was not showing accurately in the report. This is because those initial time estimates were updated in the status/funding tab of the change request. So as we can see here on the mod for those changes, we can see that only 315 days were actually added, not 600 as reported in the mod routing slip, as gathered from these initial time estimates. That's been corrected, and now the mod routing slip will get the time extension data from the completed modification information instead of those initial time estimates on the BCD items. Okay, moving on to our last update. In the hazard analysis module, the AHA number column was added to both government and contractor mode. The AHA number can be edited at creation by contractors when they create an AHA, but once it's generated, it cannot be edited again. This will also now allow contractor users to edit the activity hazard analysis title beyond creation as well. So that concludes our presentation. Here we have a couple of videos from our previous trainings for you to visit or revisit. And we've also got the RMS website link, the RMS YouTube channel link, the RMS Support Center Help Desk link, our phone number to call the help desk, and then the KM portal link as well. And so now we'll open up the floor for any discussion or questions to occur.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and address the questions that are in the chat first, because we haven't been able to quite keep up with them. Just so that you know, there is one question in there about the progress percent not being fixed yet. There's a special release coming up to address that. With the current release that we're getting ready to push out on Thursday, that does have some updates that will also improve monthly progress. So that way things are doing well. We are currently working on getting it fully fixed. It is a multi-step process and it will get taken care of. So that's what we're doing with that one. Another question in here with regards to RMS text for using as a template. So where I said I think go ahead and put in a ticket for that one so that way we can see what text is missing and get that updated and added back in there. If you don't know how to put in a ticket, just give us a call at 442-333-1011 and we'll put in the ticket for you so that way we can get that updated. Let's see here. If it's already been approved in CFMS, so everything with pay requests has to go through CFMS. So if you've got the wrong ENG 93 that was uploaded as CFMS, you're gonna, if it has not been approved in CFMS, you can resubmit it after correcting the document package inside of RMS. Otherwise, you'll have to go and upload it directly into CFMS. If you need help with correcting it inside of RMS, please give us a call or put in a ticket and we'll give you instructions on how to do that. Let's see here. This is a progress graph. We do some here. Okay, so yes, with the updates that are going through, we pushed out updates the last release. We're pushing out updates this release for monthly progress. Those changes need to be updated in the actual contract for them to show up in the summary report. So I would advise you to ask your users to go in and look at that in order to make sure it shows up properly in the summary reports. But all of the changes that we're making are to fix the contract locally. So as long as it's working in the contract, the summary report will get updated. Clicking on the mod box or even in rather than something is there's no way to fix it. I'm guessing you're talking about the mod package checkbox. I don't believe anything is going to be changed with that checkbox. Go ahead and submit a ticket. I'll look into that to research, but I don't think anything is being changed with that one. Any other questions? Yeah, since PCF is, okay, so the question is more a reiteration about the mod package again, that you can't change it after the fact. We're no longer sending documents to PCF because RMS is now the system of record. So everything is going to be controlled and taken care of inside of RMS. So you won't have to worry about going to PCF and changing the documents and making sure the right documents are over there because everything is going to be kept inside of RMS. Let me make sure I've answered everybody's questions. Otherwise, feel free to go ahead and speak up if you have a question while I'm running through this.
I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, go for it.
This might be an old question, been answered previously. I apologize, but is the shared document package in the submittal module gone? And if so, can the government provide supporting documentations to the government document package and the contractor will be able to view them?
You're talking about the transmittal document package missing the shared document package?
Yes. It's only a government document package and the contractor can't view those documents.
Yeah, the government document package can't be viewed by the contractors, but the shared document package has not been removed. So if you're not seeing it, let me get your name really fast, because I'll give you a call back because that's unusual. I'd like to see what's seeing on your screen. So we're gonna get a ticket open for you to look into that because this is the first time I've ever heard of that.
Okay, appreciate it.
Let's see here.
Could you go over what you did for the contract status curve again, please? Maybe bring that slide back up.
You're talking about the one with the
1 second.
status, the codes, the different codes?
Yes.
Okay.
Or the one before this one?
No, that's good. Whoop, no. 10. Yeah, you were on
Okay,
it.
got it.
Okay. What's your question about this one?
So I was just curious what was done in terms of corrections on this. So I'm looking at this. So um, this is showing that, like, and I don't know what the run date on the report was, but it looks to me there like, just for example, that January's open and there's a January update to 10%, right? And if it's the current run on the report, then we're showing the previous month. So I guess I just don't understand why we don't want to show current data, which is one of the big things with RMS. And then just in general with this chart, I've submitted several tickets over the past year. The numbers have been dropping off. Sometimes we get progress payment data repopulated 3 months after it originally occurred. And then we get curves that instead of going to 100%, they drop back to 0 or 10 or something strange. So I guess I really would like this fixed. And it's been going on a long time. So I was just curious what we were actually doing with this chart, because all this looks like is we've looks like to me this has just been updated to report last month's information, which doesn't make any sense to me.
So from my understanding, because January is, well, at the time that this was through, this report was run in January. So January had not completed out yet. So it's still up in the air. Depending on your district and your district setting will depend on whether or not you want to actually update that manually or not. The reason, from my understanding, that it's showing the last month that was done was because that one's guaranteed done. The current month may or may not be done. So this report is for the last completed month. Okay, so it's going to be similar to, what is it? The exposure hours. The exposure hours also, you can't do the exposure hours until the first day of the next month. So with this reporting, it is reporting the last fully completed month. So that way, you know, 100% that that's where it was as of that month. As for the other comments that you're talking about with dropping off, this will help with some of that, and the changes that we're going through and making with this will help mitigate some of the issues that we're seeing. I think it should be taken care of with this release, though, like I said, we do have another special release that's coming out that also will hit one more area to try and improve this.
So I'm really trying not to be argumentative here, but when I run that contract status sheet, it gives the as of date at the top of the report as of the date that you run it. So there's, if you're going to have progress from the previous month, then we need to add a progress as of, I don't know, 31 December, instead of saying the report at the top of it is the 30th of January. I just, it's very
You're right.
deceiving. You think you have a contract status as of the date of the report run, but then that progress information is from a previous data date.
Oh yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So that's something that we'll go ahead and get updated. Do you want to have a ticket separate from the ones you already have to track when we put that in there?
I just, this whole sheet, there's been a number of problems with it. I mean, it used to be working okay, and then people in the field could update it to, make it work for the status sheets that they have to share with their customers. But I just, if you want me to put another one in for just this one, that's fine. I'll do it. I just, it just needs to be fixed. I mean, it's been, I don't know. I think the first ticket on this I put in like in February, March last year, to be honest with you.
Understandable.
And I know there's a lot of things going on, so I'm not saying this is the most important thing that,
Mhm.
that we're facing, but these things need to be fixed. And this is information we share with, installations, with customers, and It's very difficult.
Right. And we do appreciate your feedback. I'll go ahead and put the ticket in for you. Whether or not you want to keep it open, I'll let you decide on that one, but we will go ahead and put in an update for this one. If there's anything else that anyone else recommends that needs updating or whatever, please put in a ticket. We do look at those ones. A lot of the times it does have to go through the RSG, which is the sustainment group for RMS, who decides whether or not it's going to be something that's going to work with all of RMS. But if you send it to us first, then there'll be two avenues where it will come into the TMO and the RSG to take a look at and see what kind of the priority is going to be put on it. The more people who put in a request for something, the more likely something is actually going to get changed. So I'll definitely go ahead and get you a ticket for this little part. If there's anything else that you guys see for yours, you can just go ahead and reply to that ticket like, I also want to see this, and this, and we'll add that to that as well.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, I'm going to check to see if there's any other questions.
Yeah, I just want to make sure, I had one question, make sure that y'all was addressing the question I had in the chat. I was unclear about the group, the group printout. Is that still going to be work for adjusting the progress graph? It's still being inconsistent. Is that correct?
What do you mean by the group?
So when you print off the whole office area, the office that you're doing, all the projects,
The
it
summary
doesn't
reports.
consist. Yeah, the summary reports. It doesn't. It's still inconsistencies with this graph. It says no data shown, and I can print it off individually, and it shows a graph there, and there's nothing wrong with it when you print off each individual project. But when you actually print off the whole thing, it shows some of them will have the data, some of them won't have the data.
So
And
that, go ahead and put in a ticket. Let me see here, and then we'll look into that because that should be updating.
yeah, so I just checked it a while ago, and I have like 3 or 4 projects that actually show out. They'll print out individually. The graph shows out fine, but when you print it out in a group, as a group in the summary, it shows no data shown.
Okay.
And
So
and to capture off the conversation earlier too, like I know what was frustration about the printed schedule progress is RMS recently started like dropping off, like going from, for instance, on this one, it'd go from 9 to 0. On what day does it automatically go to 0? And then your graph looks like you have lost progress. I mean, at a minimum, RMS should actually, on a certain date, if it tries to update on the next month, it should automatically go to a minimum of the previous month actual progress, because we're not going to go negative.
understandable. And this is one of the things that this dev item is actually correcting. So when we go out on Thursday, now it is going to show that the numbers are 0 because those are future. They haven't been set in stone at this point in time. But when it's reporting on the graph, so if you're looking at the graph, it's going to stop with the last reported set of data. So if you look at the slide that's showing right now, you can see that the blue line stops just before January of 2025. So it stops having data at that point, and because that's the last reported stuff. Because you're right, you don't want to see negative numbers on there because they shouldn't be negative numbers for that particular one. I will create a ticket for you to work with you about the summary report. That I'm going to work with the other gentleman first, and then I'll contact you for that one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to make sure that, I mean, I know that most of the graphs on the grayed out areas, that is 0. Yeah, the graphs don't have a problem with that, but I think what RMS is capturing is when it turns white, at what point of the month that it actually turns white and it starts capturing that number. If you don't go in and update it manually, then it drops to 0. And it's if RMS is going to actually automatically drop it to 0 when you're not in there, if there's not a payment and somebody's not updating, it should automatically copy the previous month. If you print off a report and you didn't update the report or the status, it should automatically go to the previous one. It shouldn't drop to 0 and capture that number.
Correct. That was before. Starting Thursday,
Okay.
that's not going to happen anymore. So
Okay.
starting on Thursday, the data is going to be better handled and better processed. So that way, when it opens up, it's going to automatically copy what was from the last month unless somebody updates it. So when they go in there and update it, or if it's updated by a progress payment, it's going to change if the number is greater. Only if the number is greater. So if a user goes in and adds a bigger number automatically, and then later on goes in and there's a progress payment that drops that number down, it's not going to drop it down because of the progress payment, because a user went in and actually manually entered a higher number. So this is one of the things that's going to be fixed with this coming release on Thursday.
Okay. All right. Thanks.
Okay, did we get everybody's question?
I have one. I don't know if I'm the last person.
Go ahead.
I have, well, I sort of have two questions. One is on this same contract status sheet that you have here. Mine is still, it doesn't matter what mine is doing. When you do the update, what is the plan intended for us to select? Is it the S-curve library getting updated? So if we chose the S-curve, is that something that's going to be accurate from now on?
Are you talking about on this screen specifically?
Correct.
So if you're updating the schedule, it's based off of your district's policy as to whether you're going to be using that. If you're using the S-curve option in here, that works as far as I've seen. I haven't seen any issues with it not working. I've run a couple of tests in this area with these updates, and that works without any problems. Now that only does the scheduled progress. It is not going to change the actual progress. So just keep that in mind. That
Okay.
is working.
Okay, so if it's not working, it's really our district library that needs to get updated. Is that what you're saying?
It depends on what's going on if it's not working. So I would actually ask that you submit a ticket so that way we can take a look at it and see what's going on in your district as well as in your contract where you're not seeing the S-curve. Because I know in this view that's currently being shown, this view is working. We do have another view with placement where
All right,
that,
so it just might be our
that's
library.
what
I'll
you're
submit a
talking
ticket.
about. That's different. And that one's, yeah, that one is actually going to be part of the fix that's coming up, the special release that's coming up in a short while as well.
Okay, understood. My second question, I already submitted a ticket, but I don't know if I need to submit another ticket. It's not something that you covered today, but so you could let me know if to submit another ticket. For the transmittals, whenever, so I only found this out yesterday, so I don't know how long this has been a thing. But yesterday I entered a submittal with the wrong date, but I couldn't go back and change the date. Why is that blacked out?
Oh, yeah. So when you're talking about the government receipt date, correct?
Correct.
Okay. So there is actually a separate dev item for that one. If you want to track that being fixed, you can go ahead and submit a ticket for that one and we can do that. However, if you get the date wrong for that before that fix goes out, you're going to need to submit a ticket anyway so that we can go in and actually update it. We'll need to know.
Oh, you will go in and update it for me. Okay.
Yeah, we have to go in and update that. So we'll need to know the date.
Okay, it's sort of like a, go ahead, sorry.
Just when you submit the ticket, just let us know which transmittal, which contract ID, and what the actual government receive date should be. And at that point, we will be able to go in and update it for you. And also we'll link your ticket to the dev item that's going to prevent that from happening in the future.
Okay, perfect. It's a two-part question, sort of. So one, the RFI portion of it, when we cannot edit our response, is there a reason for that? Or if we do edit our response, it creates another one, which is fine, but the contractor sees both. Is there no liability with that? Like, why can't the first one be deleted and leave the second one?
Are you talking about recalling the transmittal?
No, I'm talking about the RFI. So a contractor submits an RFI, we answer the RFI, but if the answer, we have an issue with the answer, I could go and revise the answer per se, which creates two answers to the contractor. He sees both. We are not allowed to delete the first one. Why is that?
We don't have revision history. Sorry, not revision history. We don't have a recall option on RFIs yet. That is one of the areas that we were looking at potentially putting recalls, which will allow that feature to be added to it. So at this point, if you want to know how we're going with that update, you can submit a ticket and we can look into that one and give you some updates with that one as well. But right now,
Okay.
RFI don't have that. So until they do, that feature is going to be the way that is.
Yeah, I feel like that's a huge risk because now they have two answers and it's just like, which one is right? We could tell them through email, but there's still two answers in RMS.
Understandable. Yeah, we're working on trying to correct that.
Okay, I'll submit both tickets. Thank you.
Even when we get the
Thank you.
recall
We'll look
feature
forward.
added to RFIs, there still will be two shown. One will be the original, and one will be the revised.
I didn't hear that. Who's just said? What did you just say? I'm sorry.
Even when we add the recall feature, it's still going to show both, and one is the original and one is the revised.
I'm
But-
asking, why can't we delete the original one that's wrong? We don't want the contractor to see the original answer.
This came from headquarters office of council because if it was sent, then the contractor has a legitimate copy. And if we take it out of RMS, then we lose that traceability. That's why we add both into RMS.
Oh, so as soon as we're signed, it's already sent to the contractor is what you're saying?
Effectively, yeah.
So if we delete it, it doesn't delete it from both sides, it just deletes it from our side?
Well, the whole problem was deleting something that was already signed.
Yeah, the problem is we're humans and we make mistakes, so
Yes.
I don't know, but I understand.
But due to contractual requirements, it was signed, it was sent to the contractor. If they print it out, then we go back and delete it. We have now just altered the system of record.
Okay. I guess either way, it's a mess, but I understand what you're saying.
Any other questions? All right, I am not seeing anything else in the chat. However, we do have a little bit more time left in the meeting, so we'll go ahead and hang out. And if you do have any other questions, feel free to ask them. We'll be around for another 10, 15 minutes, give or take. So just as a reminder, thank you guys so very much for joining us today. This release will go out on Thursday. If you have any suggestions, any issues, any problems, please feel free to contact the help desk. Give us a call at 442-333-1011. We do call you back and we don't leave you on hold for forever and a day. If we are busy, it will go to voicemail. But again, we do call you back usually with the same day. Sometimes it's the next day, depending on if we're busy. But leave your name and your number at minimum and we'll call you back and make sure you get taken care of. Again, thank you guys so much for joining and I hope you have a wonderful day.